Okay, since I hurt my leg and can't really do a leg day, I decided to throw in a regular arm day this week. I haven't done a full arm day in, I don't know, months or more than a year maybe, but figured might as well do it now. Enjoy getting the pump, I guess. Started off with cable pushdowns, you can see here, and I'm kind of keeping my elbows a little forward from my shoulders to work on the long head a little more. And the reason I'm doing that is because uh, later in the workout I do JM presses, which I don't know if I'm doing them right, but the way I do them, it kind of hits the outer head a little more. Then I moved on to curls, just standing barbell curls or cable bar curls. And didn't really do anything special here, heavy. I just showed one of the sets here. Sticking to around 10 or 12 reps per set. This is my third set. The first movement really for both tricep and biceps, I was just kind of getting blood in the area, nothing too heavy. I wouldn't really consider the workout to really be starting until the third exercise, which is coming up here as skull crushers. And I wanted to go kind of heavy on them, so I used the bench here and the straight bar. And then, you can see how I'm laying off the bench the other way. The reason I do that is because it allows you to get a little extra leverage when you're going heavy. If you lay your whole body on the bench, your hips kind of will start coming off the bench as you get up over 200 pounds. Or for me, I guess maybe somewhere over 60 or 75% of your body weight. And putting your hips off the bench that way lets you kind of drop your hips a little bit to keep your body from kind of lifting off the bench as the weight gets behind your head. And this was a little feeler set. I haven't done these in months and months, so I kind of wanted to see how this felt before I decided where I was going to go with the weight. And this felt really pretty smooth. I felt like I was controlling it through the rep. I wasn't really exploding. I wasn't using my legs at all because that left leg is still injured. And so based on that, I decided I'd give 225 a try. I'm pretty sure I've done 225 in the past. I'm pretty sure I've done it a couple times. I can't remember exactly, but it's been years if I have. And this actually felt much better than I thought. I thought I was going to have to really kind of drop my hips and get some momentum at the start, but I was able to basically just really contract it up. I mean, I do bring the bar behind my head, but I always do that in skull crushers. And you can see I hit the peg there on the third rep. And this felt light enough where I was tempted to go up to maybe 250. And I'm pretty sure I could. But the third rep, I hit the peg. And then that sixth rep there, my legs started coming off the ground. And with my left leg hurt, I can't really contract that quad. So I just left it at that and figured I'd call 225 a win and move on. Next movement was this old preacher bench tricep extension combo. I don't know who makes it. It's been painted over long ago. But I really like this movement. It's one of the few preachers that I really feel in my bicep. Most of the time I just feel it in the tendon at the brachioradialis, especially with the arm pad being flat. If I were ever to design a preacher curl, I'd have that arm pad rounded so that your elbow didn't dig into the pad during the movement. You could almost like almost like a tube type shape, I think would be best. And I have seen those before, and sometimes you'll have them on a preacher bench where it's kind of spider curl on the opposite side, which is rounded. And these are kind of my version of JM presses. I call them that, but as soon as I call something a movement, someone will tell me how I'm doing it wrong. So really, I'm just doing basically a close grip bench where the bar, if it were to come all the way down, would be like to my nose or my eyes. And it's maybe some people would call this a skull crusher too. That's fine, but this is what I call JM press. And because when I'm doing a skull crusher, I'm thinking of rotating my hands in a circular motion by contracting the triceps. On a JM press, I'm thinking of basically pressing the bar straight up. There's no arc to the motion. And these were kind of hurting my elbows a little bit, so I just stayed at 135. This is a funny movement when you do it, because by the time you get to where the bar is at the bottom, my arms are bent as far as they could. My bicep is really jammed into my forearm, and it feels like my elbow's going to pop out of my arm. But then when you go back and watch it, it looks like you're doing a partial range of motion. But it's because that elbow dips way forward, so you really do get a lot of range as far as how many degrees the angle at the elbow goes through. I mean, it goes from all the way from about 20 degrees to 180 degrees. So it's a pretty decent range of motion. I think this one will give a better view of the actual range of motion. And this is my third set here, last set for this movement. I was just doing 3 sets for every movement, really. Yeah, you can kind of see the range of motion, and the bar doesn't quite move straight up and down like I thought it does in my head. A little, yeah, sort of does. It's always funny watching these when you've done certain movements for years but never really videoed them. You see that what in your mind what you're doing is not always what the weight is actually doing, which I think is kind of interesting. And then and I never have arm days, but if I do, I've always kind of alternated between bicep movement and tricep movement. I don't know why, I just like to do it that way. I do the same thing on legs. I'll do a quad movement, then a hamstring movement, then a quad movement, then a hamstring movement. And these were intended to be drag curls, but on the first set I realized that I'm apparently really not very strong on drag curls. And so rather than just get a few reps with the weight, I extended the set after I hit failure with drag curls by doing a few reps of regular curls. You see there. So I just did 2 sets here. And then for the third set, I didn't want to fail after like 2 reps of drag curls, so I just did straight regular curls. I think I show it. Yep. So this is my third set here, but for this one I just did straight regular curls. And again, it kind of looks like a partial range of motion, but the only way for me to get my arms higher at this point is to swing my elbows forward, which is then using the front delts as the contraction that causes that to happen. I've never really found any benefit to that. If you could call bicep curl a full movement, meaning from hips to nose, then I don't do barbell curls, I guess, because that top portion of the movement is really all a front raise for me. So that's why I'm always hesitant to call things. You have to, when you're training, you have to decide, am I training a movement? If you're a weightlifter, you have to train a movement. You have to get very good at the rules of a movement. If you're a power lifter, you have to get really good at a movement. A bench press is defined as going from a pause at the chest to full lockout without the hips or the shoulders leaving the bench, whatever the exact rulings are. And those are the rules you have to abide by. If you're working your chest, it's a totally different thing. You're using the bench press as a tool to work your chest, meaning the movement doesn't matter. It's however you move the weight that activates the chest the most, and that's going to be different for every person. That's why I've never been a form Nazi, and I've never really understood why people were form Nazis outside of maybe the weightlifting community, where proper form is required to be able to move. Because you have to be most efficient as possible moving the weight. But as a bodybuilder, your goal is to use an exercise as a tool to work a muscle, and so any way you vary that exercise to work the muscle better is going to benefit you as a bodybuilder, whether or not that you're doing the movement the way it's officially described in some magazine from 60 years ago. And that's it for arms.